The gaze of this pharaoh defies time. Across the centuries, his impassive face delivers the message of a civilization haunted by the beyond. Tutankhamun's mysterious smile reminds us of the riches of ancient Egypt, but his empty eyes speak of death. In 1922, the world was recovering from the Great War. Archaeologists were getting back to work in their long-delayed digs. In Egypt, a darkness intended for eternity was pierced by the flickering light of a candle. The silence was broken in a tomb where no one had set foot in over 3,000 years. Howard Carter astonished the world. After years of searching without success, he had uncovered, in the heart of the Valley of the Kings, the fabulous tomb of Tutankhamun. Overnight, the treasures in the young pharaoh's tomb cast their spell on the Western world. In the public mind, Egypt became the country of mysteries, the land where humanity must seek out the keys to its past. Has anyone not dreamed of the riches of Egypt, or visited the pyramids without being moved? Today, it seems everything has been discovered. Hordes of tourists hurry past, taking pictures of everything they can't commit to memory. But modern Egypt offers a vision of a land suspended between past and present, a land where many mysteries remain intact. The history of civilization in this part of the world is above all the history of a giant river, the Nile. Its legendary course will guide us on a journey through time. Egypt is a gift of the Nile. The green ribbon of the Nile Valley has always held a fascination. Ancient Greek explorers, accustomed to rivers that flowed from north to south, saw the Nile as a thwarted force of nature. And what a force! It stretches for 6,671 kilometers. The power of the Nile seems irresistible. Nomadic hunters were the first humans to appear in the Nile Valley. 4,000 years before Christ, they fled arid lands and built camps of reed huts beside the Nile. There, over the next 2,000 years, an empire grew and prospered. But what role did the Nile actually play in the foundation of this society?
Si vous regardez une photo satellite du nord-est de l'Afrique et que vous voyez le million de kilomètres carrés qui correspond à l'Égypte, vous voyez très bien que le ruban vert de la vallée et le delta ne sont là que parce qu'il y a le fleuve le dessine. Et c'est évident que dans ce désert, c'est la partie la plus orientale du Sahara, dans ce désert il n'y aurait rien s'il n'y avait pas l'eau. Donc le Nil est absolument la vie même de l'Égypte, c'est évident. Et les Égyptiens le transcrivait très bien, puisque quand vous avez des scènes de lustration, de purification, où vous voyez, par exemple, le pharaon qui est purifié par deux divinités qui l'encadrent et qui versent une aiguière le flot de l'eau qui tombe en se croisant sur le corps du roi est fait de petits signes de vie qui se succèdent les uns aux autres, qui s'encastrent. L'eau, c'est la vie.
The source of that life is in the mountains of Ethiopia, 2,200 kilometers from the delta. The headwaters of the Blue Nile form a vast lake between the mountains, almost an inland sea. Lake Tana, as it is called, covers 3,500 square kilometers. Between June and September, storms rage over the high Ethiopian plateau. Water streams down the slopes. With the coming of the monsoon, the lake overflows, and the water of the Nile begins its journey down to the plains. Plunging through the smoking water of the Tissisat Falls, it takes a month to cross Ethiopia and Sudan. The clear waters of Lake Tana become a mighty rushing torrent. For several kilometers, this raging tide tears whole blocks of sediment out of the mountains. In some years, it carries no less than 50 tons of silt, all the way to the mouth of the river. In July, when the vast flood reaches Egypt, the scene changes. The Nile is now between 8 and 10 meters deep, and it spreads out across several kilometers of the plain. In the 4 months from July to October, the Nile floods the arable land and turns villages into islands. Every year, the Nile widens enormously, at the same time depositing layers of silt that push back the desert. The ancient Egyptians tried to keep a record of the recurrent floods. They tried to detect the first signs of the flood by building nilometers to measure increases in the water level. The moods of the Nile were part of daily life. The Egyptians soon realized that the floods could never be controlled. They would have to adapt their sowing and harvesting to the rhythm of the floods. Imagine their wonder when vast stretches of water covered everything. The flood was, of course, an important source of wealth and prosperity, but the Nile also had a magical character. How did the men and women of ancient Egypt see the river? What place did it have in their world?
Le Nil lui-même, étant donné qu'il est finalement la voie de communication de l'Égypte, cette présence souveraine de cette masse d'eau qui devenait une véritable mer pendant la crue, fait que l'implication se retrouve un peu partout. Et en particulier, tout le rôle religieux est énorme. Les dieux se déplacent sur des barques. Le soleil se déplace Dans la journée, il se déplace sur une barque, diurne, il se déplace le soir sur un île souterrain, sur une barque de la nuit, etc. Donc évidemment, l'image même d'une île a généré, on va dire, énormément de choses, y compris, par exemple, même les cosmogonies, la création du monde. Ils avaient sous les yeux, ils avaient chaque année cette immense étendue d'eau qui recouvrait tout et qui a donné cette très belle image de l'océan primordial.
The mighty Nile, a wonder of nature, swept across Egypt's scorched earth. The flood was not a scourge, but a godsend. It spread its blessings all along the river. Modern Egypt has inherited this natural treasure. It too is sustained by the Nile. 6,000 years ago, the banks of the Nile saw the birth of early agriculture. As new techniques developed, so did Egyptian civilization. Production increased. Egyptian farmers grew barley, wheat, and flax. They produced the wine and beer they loved. They were goat herds and cow herds. 3,000 years before Christ, Upper and Lower Egypt were united. From then on, all the peasants shared the same culture. There were not yet any large cities, but the emergence of ceramics and pottery and of large ceremonial centres reflects the influence of a centralised government. Thousands of villages appeared in the valley. At the same time, the spoken word was recorded in inscriptions invoking the gods. Writing, born out of worship, was spread by commerce along the Nile, the natural route for travellers and traders. "4,500 years ago, the first royal tombs appeared on the edge of the desert. They were mastabas, simple burial chambers beneath flat-roofed rectangular buildings of mud brick. In them, the kings lay isolated in the silence of the dunes, surrounded by their wealth. But these displays of opulence reveal the anxieties of the ancient Egyptians. A whole people had begun a quest for immortality. 4,600 years ago, Pharaoh was deemed the son of Ra, the sun god. He could be proud of his divine descent. His power was immense. He reigned over 2 million people. His last resting place soared toward the heavens. It consorted with the sun. It was a symbol of perfection. This was the golden age of ancient Egypt. Today, it's hard to imagine the wonder of the scholars who accompanied Napoleon to Egypt in 1798. That campaign led to the Western world's rediscovery of these extraordinary monuments. Around the campfire at night, the questions would have been endless. Who built these gigantic pyramids? What were they used for? And above all, what was inside them? If they were to unlock the secrets of this vanished civilization, all these questions would have to be answered. Small parties of surveyors, architects and mathematicians, wearing high boots and woolen uniforms with gold buttons, ventured deep into the suffocating heat of the largest pyramid. With only candles to light their way, it took them hours to work their way through the immense labyrinth. But they came up with the first answers to the puzzles of the pyramids. According to Napoleon's engineers, the largest of the three pyramids was 230 meters long. It was 147 meters high, the equivalent of a 40-story building. Construction of the mausoleum had required great technical precision. The angles at the base were exactly 90 degrees, and the four sides were exactly aligned with the 4 points of the compass. To build it, the ancient Egyptians must have been not only architects and engineers, they must also have been excellent astronomers. The pyramid was built with 3 million blocks of stone, each weighing over 2.5 tons, and it stood on a base of carved granite. 2 chambers, one above the other, lay in its center. Legend had it that the larger was the king's. After following narrow passageways for 40 meters, the surveyors climbed to the larger chamber via a 54-meter staircase, one seemingly made for giants. Here, the carved blocks fitted perfectly, without the slightest gap. At the end of this passageway lay the king's chamber. Inside was the granite sarcophagus where his body was once laid. But all other traces of the past had vanished. Nothing remained of the ancient splendor. The pyramid, bare of all ornamentation, had nothing to offer seekers after treasure. Yet there can be no doubt that the rooms in which the pharaoh was laid to rest must have been magnificent. For a long time, no one suspected that just over the heads of the visitors to the royal tomb, there were discharge chambers supporting the weight of the tons of stone. The logistics involved in the construction of this room are staggering. It used 9-meter slabs, each weighing several tons. Amid the graffiti left by the earliest modern visitors, an inscription in red catches the eye. Here, in the very heart of the pyramid, workmen inscribed in red ink the name of their master, the man who had the pyramid built, Cheops, one of the last rulers of the Third Dynasty. Were the pyramids the pharaoh's houses of eternity? Did they represent the stairs the dead king had to climb to reach Ra, the sun god? How do we explain the construction of the pyramids 4,600 years ago? Who were the people who accomplished this amazing feat?
Cette image de la pyramide comme peut-être la perfection de ce qui a été peut-être justement l'âge d'or de la civilisation égyptienne, en tous les cas sur l'aspect pharaonique, parce qu'à ce moment-là, le pharaon est vraiment un dieu. Le pharaon est quelqu'un d'essence divine pour qui On a évidemment depuis longtemps perdu l'image d'un peuple d'esclaves sous le fouet qui construit la pyramide, comme on peut le voir dans certains films, y compris dans des films où d'ailleurs on vous montre des roues très belles alors qu'à la roue n'arrive que pas mal de siècles après. La personne du roi était tabou. Toucher le roi même par inadvertance était passible de mort. Donc c'est le moment probablement où le pharaon est le plus pharaon de toutes des 3000 et quelques années, même certainement, des 3000 et quelques années de la civilisation égyptienne.
If the builders of the pyramids were not slaves, who were they? For a long time, modern archaeologists have been trying to find out. Egypt still holds surprises, even with millions of tourists visiting every year. She toys with us, and when it suits her, she reveals just a little of her true face. In 1991, a tourist admiring the view was thrown from his horse. His mount had stumbled against the remains of a low brick wall that had begun to emerge from the sand. Archaeologists flocked to begin excavations, and dozens of tombs were uncovered at the very foot of the pyramids. Supervised by the site conservator, Zehi Hawes, these digs radically changed our understanding of ancient Egypt. Among the many bones uncovered were objects used in everyday life, and among them were tools that were probably used in building the pyramids. The archaeologists' brushes also uncovered touching relics. Here, almost 4,600 years ago, men and women prayed for a glorious life in the next world after their deaths. The echo of that prayer is now being raised from the sand.
This is the new tombs that we found. Very interesting tombs. You never see tombs like this only in Aswan at Qubbat al-Hawa. But this is a very interesting style because this is the first time that we know something about the common people, the ordinary Egyptians who built the pyramid. And this is why this discovery is amazing, because from each bone and from each stone, you can know something about the people.
Every day, the excavations yield something new. Since 1991, 600 tombs and over 1,000 skeletons have been found here. The task is enormous, but the archaeologists are in no hurry. They don't want to miss any messages from the past. As they work among the tombs, they maintain a respectful silence. The dig quickly uncovered some amazing, almost miraculous finds. They include the tombs of administrators, public servants and ordinary labourers who built the pyramid for Cheops 4,600 years ago. But what can these human remains teach us? Modern Cairo goes about its business oblivious of the fact that the history of mankind is slowly being reconstructed at its heart. Here, at the National Research Centre, the bones exhumed at the foot of the pyramids are analysed. For Professor Azar Sari el-Din, these bones are tangible proof that the pyramid builders were not slaves. Each skull and each bone help her reconstruct lives from thousands of years ago. For example, her painstaking autopsies reveal signs of ancient surgery.
يا إما إنه يكون محاولة تدخل جراحي من الدكاترة يعني أياميها إن هم يحاولوا إن هم يتدخلوا عشان يقللوا البريشر مثلا داخل الجمجمة أو حاجة زي كده عشان يحاول يعالج الحالة.
The investigation reaches back in time. Cancerous cells were eating away at this skull. The only way an ancient surgeon could deal with them was to cut them out. With patient detective work, the anthropologists reconstruct what happened to the bones. This arm bone suffered multiple fractures. It still shows the signs of a procedure to put it back together. The patient not only had to wear a splint, he also needed a graft to help the bones re-knit. X-rays confirm the diagnosis. 5,000 years ago, this man underwent a long and complex surgical procedure. He could well have been a worker who was taken to the doctor after a slab fell on his arm. Would a slave have got that kind of care? Another discovery revealed new information when archaeologists exhumed the remains of a mother and her young child. At the foot of the pyramids, craftsmen, stonecutters and masons lived and died near their work.
طبعا احنا اول ما توقعنا ان احنا هنلاقي مجموعه من الرجال فقط وان هم هيقوموا بالعمل، بس من الصدفه ان اول هيكل تم اكتشافه كان هيكل لسيده، فده اللي خلانا طبعا نغير الفكره دي خالص ونبدا ندور نشوف فعلا هل نسبه السيدات دول هتكون قد ايه بالنسبه للرجال، وهل هم فعلا مجتمع مستقر ولا جايين فقط عشان الشغل.
For centuries, historians supported the slavery theory to explain the monumental constructions of ancient Egypt. They were mistaken. The workmen were not slaves. In fact, a whole village was built at the foot of the pyramids. Large families, men, women and children, lived in it.
مش عبيد، ان احنا لما لقينا الهياكل بتاعتهم لقينا هياكل لسيدات ورجال والأطفال، يعني ما لقيناش رجال بس. لو كانوا عبيد كان هيجيب شوية عمال رجال ويشتغلوا ويروحوا بلدهم، لكن دول كانوا عايشين مستقرين في المنطقة، فكانوا عايشين مع سيداتهم وأطفالهم وعيشة مستقرة يعني، فأكيد ما كانش عبيد.
The British Museum in London. Researchers here have delved even deeper. By piecing together and translating texts from the era, they have recreated part of the daily lives of these men and women.
That's why there's not many sheet joins on here, are there? I think it's very good quality papyrus, so they're probably quite. They might just be long sheets. Do you think they could have Yes, good. Yeah. And the hieroglyphs line up beautifully.
The museum archives hold a rare treasure. The sands of Egypt recently yielded up a perfectly flat piece of stone that lists the names of certain workers. It is an attendance record, 5,000 years old, and it records, day by day, the date and the reason for each workman's absence.
It is inscribed on both sides and contains a record of about 40 names of workmen. I think this kind of document is particularly interesting because it is a document of the ordinary people of ancient Egypt.
The scribe's stylus faithfully recorded in black ink the name of each worker. Underneath, he inscribed the date of absence, also in black. The cause of absence was recorded in red. In half the cases, the main reason given was illness. This incomparable document takes us right into the world of ancient Egypt. "2,500 years before Christ, a young man called Seba was away from work for one day. What reason did he give for his absence?"
In the case of a worker called Seba, whose name is written here at the beginning of this line, he was off for one day because he was bitten by a scorpion. This is a kind of accident which could have happened even in the house in the village. The village where these workers lived was situated on the desert where scorpions are quite common. And in the case of the worker called Khonsu, whose name is written here, he was absent firstly because he was ill for some days here, but then more interestingly, later on, we are told he is at his festival at this point. And this may be a family or personal celebration, such as a birthday, for example.
The pyramid workers had a wide variety of reasons. Passer left the workers' village when he heard that his young son was sick.
From the details of the life of these workers on this record, we can see that they were free people. They had their own lives, which were reasonably pleasant for the time. They had their own possessions. It was a hierarchical society. There's no escape from the fact that there were people at various levels of society. But having said that, it was a much freer and equal society than certain others.
The names on the stone are like a mirror of the past. Nephrab left in mourning to have his brother embalmed. Death was everywhere, an inescapable part of life.
On arrive à ce paradoxe dans l'Égypte ancienne que ce qui paraît être leur obsession de la mort et qui en fait est celle de continuer la vie de l'autre côté, aboutit à cette chose donc paradoxale qui est que rien mieux que les tombes, le décor des tombes ou le mobilier des tombes ne parle mieux de la vie quotidienne. Le but n'est pas de la raconter, mais il est de mettre à la disposition des gens qui sont enterrés dans la tombe, de mettre précisément tout ce qui peut recréer, par la vertu créatrice de l'image ou de l'écrit, la vie qu'ils ont connue et qu'ils souhaitent continuer à connaître dans l'autre monde.
The tombs of the Pharaoh's servants show us an Egypt that no longer exists. Images of papyrus and lotus blossoms are seen alongside sacred animals that are now extinct. In the fields, men and women sow wheat and harvest crops, while the fresco's explosion of colour reflects their zest for life. At the centre of it all, the Nile sets the rhythms of everyday life. and the wine growers appear delighted at the quality of the grapes. The family was very important. Family statues were taken right into the tomb. This loving father faces eternity with his two daughters. At the gates of an eternity they had constructed for themselves, the pharaoh's subjects seemed to be obsessed with life.
L'obsession de la vie, on peut parler de ça, et ce qui aboutit à l'obsession à l'éternité, cette notion d'éternité qui semble absolument peut-être la composante la plus égyptienne de toute cette imaginaire que l'on a. Et cet aspect-là est vraiment obsessionnel, c'est-à-dire que quand vous voyez la moindre petite statuette représentant un couple de défunts, par exemple, qui est dédié par leur fils, avec une toute petite inscription, même s'il n'y a que 3 signes, l'inscription, ça sera fait par leur fils qui fait vivre leur nom. Parce que tout est axé dans ça, c'est-à-dire continuer de l'autre côté. Alors, ça, comme corollaire, vous avez aussi ce qu'on appelle le chant du harpiste, c'est-à-dire quelque chose qui vous invite à profiter de la vie, parce qu'après tout, personne n'est revenu vraiment de l'autre côté pour dire si ça continue vraiment. Et profite de la vie, passe une journée parfaite avec la femme que tu aimes assise à tes côtés, jusqu'au jour qui sera celui d'aborder, c'est-à-dire jusqu'au jour avec cette belle image d'amarrer la barque qui vous amène de l'autre côté, et qui est une belle métaphore pour désigner la mort. Et jusqu'à ce jour-là, profite de la vie, parce que bon, on va faire tout ce qu'on peut. On va représenter ce que tu as vécu. On va mettre toutes les offrandes nécessaires. On mettra toujours au moins schématiser 1000 pots de bière, 1000 pains, 1000 pièces de tissu, 1000, etc., 1000 têtes de bétail, 1000 pièces de viande. Mais tout ça, c'est très bien. Tout est mis dans la tombe. Mais fais un jour heureux. Passe une journée parfaite parce que personne n'est revenu.
To accept the idea of death, the Egyptians built tombs that looked like houses. They preserved the image of a sunny universe and so paid tribute to Ra, the sun god. Yet, how do we explain the fact that hundreds of thousands of men and women worked to build a monument that may never have been occupied? Were the pyramids the triumph of life over primeval chaos? Or did they represent something more symbolic, more esoteric? "2,500 years before Christ, in what would become Europe, populations of hunters lived in primitive wooden huts. In Giza, at the same time, hundreds of thousands of workers were beginning their gigantic task. This was Egypt's golden age. Her merchants ventured into the Mediterranean. Their caravans journeyed as far south as Sudan. And all along these routes, trade flourished. Pharaoh held absolute power. Were the pyramids the symbol of this unequaled power? When his officers decided to climb the pyramids at Giza, Napoleon calculated that the 3 together contained enough stone to build a wall 3 meters high and 30 centimeters wide right around France. How long did these huge projects go on for? For the last 200 years, there have been many theories, but we still don't have an answer. Given the scorching desert heat, why did free men agree to build them? The pyramids are still an enigma. Every day, as they catch the last rays of the sun, their giant shadows blot out our questions. What we are sure of is that to get the raw materials to the pyramid site, the Egyptians had to wait for the flood. From July to October, the barges were berthed on the edge of the desert. The entire valley was covered in water during those months, and the peasants had to wait for it to recede. During this long period of idleness, the pharaoh's servants had an extremely large labour force available to them. During digs at the burial sites beside the pyramids, Zehi Hawes worked out how the builders were recruited.
This is our most recent discovery, tomb that was found. This is the tomb of Kai, who was a priest, and this tomb dated to Dynasty 4, about 4,600 years ago.
The pharaoh's priests were excellent administrators. On the walls of the tomb of Kai, who served Cheops, the whole peasant population walks in procession. Inscriptions in Kai's tomb tell us precisely when they joined the building site.
And he's telling us here that he paid them beer and bread. And he made them to make an oath and say that they are very happy. They are satisfied about this payment. They swear that they were satisfied. They said, by the name of God, we are very happy.
In exchange for their labour, Egyptian workmen received the basic necessities of life. They were grateful to the pharaoh and devoted to him. The construction of the pyramids was made possible by this contract of mutual assistance that they had with their sovereign. Modern Giza now lives and dies in the shadow of the pyramids. They are testimonials in stone to the social organization of ancient Egypt. But can we believe that the pyramids were built only to occupy the Egyptian people during the 4 months of flood time? Zehi Hawes argues that the building program had another, much stronger purpose, a symbolic one.
And the pyramid is their national project. Then all of them, they unite. All of them. King, nobleman, official, workman, farmers, all of them together work to help the king to be a god. And this is why my idea that the pyramid is a national project, it is the most important thing to the mind of the Egyptian. Without this help, the king will never build his pyramid. And this is why the pyramid was a symbol of unification of the two countries, Upper and Lower Egypt.
So part of the veil has now been lifted. For over 2,000 years, the Egyptians united to accomplish a common project, a symbol of their strength and unity. From the stone mastabas to the Giza site, almost 100 pyramids were built in Egypt. They were the first stone monuments in the history of mankind. The Egyptians built a symbol of the power of their nation in the heart of their land. In this land, the pyramid, the king's house for eternity, rose like a drop of radiant light towards the heavens. In the history of ancient Egypt, the Nile was all. Its course tells us more than any epic. It was the frontier between life and death, the path to the sun and the stars. It was more than a river. It was a god whose will was carved in stone. The untamable Nile was an integral part of ancient Egypt. Yet the Nile was tamed. In 1961, under President Nasser, construction of the Aswan Dam began. It took 10 years to complete, 10 years of hard labour to control the annual flood. The Nile is no longer a god. It has become a tame, quiet river. The Nile, like the pyramids, had to pay tribute to the modernization of Egypt. To harness its energy, modern-day Egyptians had to give up some of its benefits. Today, the land of the valley is no longer fertilized by silt borne away from the mountains of Ethiopia. Fertilizer has replaced the flood. What became of the legacy of ancient Egypt? What do the pyramids stand for today?
J'ai souvent eu le sentiment qu'actuellement, l'Égypte était parfois un peu coupée de son passé, qui n'était en fait qu'une fabuleuse ressource comme une autre. C'est-à-dire que les monuments, évidemment, attirent les gens et font du tourisme une des premières ressources de l'Égypte. Et ça, c'est quelque chose que, par exemple, Champollion, pionnier en tout, avait déjà très bien vu, parce que quand il quitte l'Égypte à la fin de son unique voyage en 1829, il laisse à Mohamed Ali une note sur la protection des monuments égyptiens. Il donne une liste des monuments qu'il faut sauver, etc. Et alors que le mot même n'existe pas encore, il voit très bien ce que sera le tourisme avec son aspect économique, c'est-à-dire venir dépenser ses devises. Et il le dit textuellement, il dit ça attirera des gens lettrés, etc., qui viendront enrichir leur pays de leurs dépenses. Cette masse de pierre, c'est probablement le symbole le plus évident, l'image la plus évidente que l'on a quand on prononce le nom de l'Égypte ancienne, avec quelques obélisques, sphinx, ou quelques mots comme ça, qui font à la fois fantasmer et rêver.
Ancient Egypt gave way to a cosmopolitan nation. Turkish, then Arab, a land of explorers. Egypt will benefit from its heritage for a long time to come, because much still lies beneath the desert sands. Today, Cairo has become a megalopolis, stretching along a quiet river. Modern Egyptians are builders too. "4,600 years ago, the pharaoh's subjects left us proofs of their prestige, their technical prowess, their grandeur. With the help of the Nile, the Egyptian civilization united men and women in a community of enormous achievement." On the edge of the desert, 3 sacred mountains remind us of the destiny of a people born on the banks of the Nile. The pyramids have remained the symbol throughout the ages of our fear of death. They rise like beams of light pointing to the hereafter. When we look at them, we are reminded that they will always keep the secret of eternal life.